Have you ever found yourself overreacting and 10 minutes later you are wondering what just happened? What did I do? Or what did I just say? Or have you ever wondered why? Something can happen, right? An event can happen or just stimuli, right? And 5 different people react totally different to the same thing. Have you ever wondered why? So before I can attempt to answer your questions, let me just tell you a bit of a story. So we had a patient who was involved in an accident, right? And they were coming back for checkups for review on a regular basis. So on this particular day, they were seated on their chair and, we're just asking a few questions, and somebody walked out of the room and banged the door. The moment that happened, all hell broke loose, guys. This guy went into a state of panic. It was so bad. This guy was screaming, he was shouting, and even with what he was saying, you could tell that this guy believed he was back at the scene of the accident, and it was as if it just happened. So it was so bad, and it took a couple of minutes to kind of calm him down and help him understand that, hey, you are in a safe place. It just hasn't happened, and kind of calmed him down eventually. So that happened. And to answer your questions, or the questions I asked initially, I just want to give you a bit of science, something I had learned in school and something I recently read. So I want you to think of the brain as having 4 different layers. The brain is very complex, but just to simplify, it's some kind of hierarchy, right? I'll concentrate on the bottom part of it and the topmost part of it. So at the bottom, we have what we call the brainstem. The brainstem, some people would even call it the reptilian brain. You can read more about that if you want to know. But the brainstem, it's a very regulatory part of the brain. So it controls your body temperature, your heart rate. So things like that will be controlled by your brainstem, very regulatory. And you have things like fight, flight, and freeze. That happens at the level of the brainstem. Above the brainstem, you have what you call the diencephalon. Above that, you have the limbic. And then another part we want to talk about at the top is the cortex. Now, the cortex is where you have logic. That's where planning happens. Your perception of time is there. Creativity is there. Language is there. So the big things, the complex things happen at the level of the cortex. So now to kind of unpack and answer the questions that were asked. When information comes in, when there's a stimuli, and when I say stimuli, I want you to think of your senses, right? It could be what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and what you smell. So your senses. So when there's a stimuli or an event happens, how information travels, it does not go straight to the logical part of your brain, the cortex. It does not do that. It first goes through the brainstem. Now remember, the brainstem is the part that regulates a lot of things, and it also has the part that controls fight, flight, and freeze, right? Based on whatever event it is. But how it decides to respond is totally based on experiences from the past and memories stored in the brain. So this is why people will react differently. And this is why sometimes we feel like we've overreacted, and then a few minutes later, we get back to normal and we're like, oh, that was out of context. I shouldn't have reacted that way, So that's a bit of the explanation of why that happens. And with knowing that, guys, I think that it's such a spectrum, right? So there's people who are on the other end, like in the story I previously told, where you can even go ahead and categorize it as post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And then there's people who are kind of in the middle. And let's take it to everyday life. I feel like each and every one of us may have had a moment where we felt like we overreacted. Funny thing is, I don't think events are isolated. And when you think of overreacting, and you will notice a certain pattern, like there's certain things that you will particularly overreact to. It's not everything. And sometimes when you see somebody else overreacting, like why would you react that way to that thing? You as a person looking from the outside, you wouldn't want to overreact or react the way they reacted, right? But it's different because we have different experiences. We have seen things differently. We have sensed things very differently. So I think with knowing that, it's important for you to understand what your triggers are as a person, right? Even if it's not at the far end. Remember, if you're in that category, I think that you need to seek professional help. But if you're right here in the middle and you don't understand, obviously you can still seek professional help. If you want to understand yourself more, you can go to a therapist like I did, and you can also journal. It really helps to open up your mind and kind of remember what happened. And in my case, I remember I couldn't remember I could tell a bit of what my triggers were, but I didn't understand why I reacted that way. Like, where did that come from? But with going through therapy and getting to know myself more and better, it was such an eye-opening thing, just getting the self-awareness. It honestly feels like a gift that I gave to myself. So yeah, guys, I hope that answers your questions, and I hope for some reason you'll be able to kind of look back and think, oh, what makes me overreact? Why do I react that way? Hey, so let's have a conversation in the comments. If you have more questions, please ask me and I'll attempt to answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching this video, and be kind to yourself this week. I will see you in the next video.